I want to thank Kip, who has been a very steadfast and committed leader in our community within this region, north of the Panhandle. He, like many people in this area, have really shown what it means to reclaim our neighborhood and take it in the direction we all care and that we all desire. And I appreciate his leadership, and I appreciate the people who are here tonight, especially in District 5, but citywide, who undertake similar actions. And one of those actions that why we're here tonight is to put something on the roadmap of history of winning against a behemoth like PG&E. And one of the reasons that I was late, to tell you, I was at the Haight-Ashbury Neighborhood Council meeting at the Park Branch Library, and they asked me to come by to speak about Prop H. And it was a decent-sized crowd, and here I am, thought I'm in a warm waters, and generally we are, like-minded community, and people who I think really want to know a little more information but prepared to go our way. And then here I am standing up in front, and the guy from PG&E raises his hands and he says, "Hey, I'm here too," and we end up having a debate. And it was a great debate, actually. It wasn't one of their political flaks. This was one of the workers, high up in the corporate sector of PG&E, but he was heartfelt and he was sincere. And he led on how he and so many of his other colleagues and co-workers have literally been put the fear of God, that if H was to pass, that it would be the end of their jobs, an end of business as they know it in San Francisco, which is why they are working so hard and spending so much money to try to defeat us. And for a second, there's something empathetic about what they had to say, but when then he told the story as to why PG&E thinks it is their responsibility to defeat us, it made it that much more clear why we're on the side of good and why we should win. PG&E has made it very clear that at all costs, they will defeat any attempt to try to municipalize or even try to consider or contemplate municipalization, because PG&E knows that this is their pipeline for the profit that they want to protect, and that at all costs, they don't want to upset that relationship whatsoever. And this gentleman tried to explain that they were a very green-sensitive company, and he believed it. And he tried to explain that PG&E is on the road to providing the kind of renewable energy that would make them the most green type of corporation here in California and be a leader in the United States. And I looked at him because I believed he was sincere. And I said to him, "How can you possibly justify that?" And he said to me on the side, "Because that's what we do." And I said, "But it's not true." And this is where that division is and why this is such a profound and fundamental debate. And PG&E will do everything they can to stop the fact that San Francisco should have a seat at the table to chart its own energy future. And the bottom line is that we will not be given that green light nor amber light unless we do so by charter amendment. And I asked this gentleman that, like, why are you against a feasibility study? He says, "We're not against a feasibility study. We just don't think it should be a charter amendment." Then you are scared of a feasibility study, because that's what Prop H is. And he says, "Well, we think it's a waste of money." And he lost on this point, and it was evident to the crowd, which is why, after we both debated, and it was professional and respectful, but it was clear that we were on opposite sides. And this is why the people voted overwhelmingly in support of Prop H at this group. And yet it was an important, I think, sort of narrative, because PG&E and their workforce believe so strongly that they must retain control of yesteryear in the way that San Francisco should continue to exist without thinking of what its future should be, as if we should be subordinate to their own interest. And that's just completely dumbfounding to me, that we, a progressive, well-known progressive by reputation nationally and abroad, that we would sit back and let these decisions be made for us without having any influence as to what the next 25 or 50 years should hold for us. This is why I want to thank everybody here, including our distinguished President of the Board of Supervisors, Aaron Peskin, who's going to come up and say a few words momentarily. And my colleagues and other elected officials and the people of San Francisco who amass to events like this because they understand that this isn't about really us trying to take over PG&E. By the way, I tried that in 2001. I directed that campaign. And I'm still really smart and from the fact that we lost by approximately 520 votes in a citywide race. And they were floating in the bay where the Coast Guard fished them out of the Farallon Islands, and the New York Times, this is a year after the 2000 presidential election, referred to us as Little Florida. Do you know how painful that is? And so this is what's been brewing for 7 years. And the reason Prop H is not a complete takeover or even a takeover at all is because an argument was used back then that we took to heart and we wanted to be measured in our response. And the argument that PG&E uses, do a feasibility study so we can really determine what the true path is for charting own energy independence. That's what H is. It's a feasibility study. It's our gateway to finding answers that are blessed by the city's constitution, so it's meaningful and it has teeth and it's binding and it's obligatory. And that's why they're going to spend as much money now as they did in 2001 to try to defeat us. And no matter what, and no matter the 1,000 TV commercials that you're seeing per week or the mailers you're getting per day, we're doing exactly the right thing. We're doing exactly what 900 cities have done in the United States. We're doing what Sacramento did 55 years ago. We're doing what Stockton Port Authority did 2 years ago by kicking out PG&E. We're doing what Palo Alto has done. We're doing what Los Angeles has done. We're doing what cities throughout California have done to say that we want to deliver the best energy from a renewable source at cheaper rates. And why can't San Francisco, who has this reputation that rests on the laurels of being considered one of the most forward-thinking cities in this nation, who is often a bellwether for great decisions on civil liberties and human rights and fearless urban government type decisions, cannot be allowed to step up to the plate to chart its own energy future? Because my predecessors, our predecessors 55 years ago said PG&E gets to have its franchise in perpetuity. That means until planet Earth dies, PG&E rules. Nobody in this day of age, anywhere in the world, would ever give a contract that says you get to rule the land in perpetuity indefinitely. Nobody's that stupid. And the bottom line is if we ever want to contemplate or even move on any consideration of that relationship, it takes a charter amendment. It's as simple as that. So when people say to you, that don't give the Board of Supervisors a blank check for revenue bonding authority, well, let me tell you something. We already have that authority. It's a law that's been vested to us by the city's constitution for decades, and we haven't ever abused it. So it's something that is already vested with the Board of Supervisors. And when they sort of use this contemptible language by acting like we're stupid and we can't run a utility system here in San Francisco, our answer is every day you wake up, you turn on the spigot, you get the best water in the United States, and that comes from the Public Utilities Commission, San Francisco driven. And we would just be just as smart and able to respond by saying that we're not being cavalier or gratuitous. We want to study it. Whether to completely municipalize or even say, PG&E, you stay, but instead of you deciding that your energy portfolio is 80% fossil fuel, maybe we want it to be 50% fossil fuel, you got to listen to us. And that's all we're asking. But for some strange reason, they just don't want to, and they're going to spend a lot of our money to try to defeat from that ever happening.